Welcome to the 2022 annual horoscope for the year ahead. I am Miss Jenny and I am your astrologer. This is the channel of Primal Girl Wellness and Down to Earth Astrology. So folks, this year I'm calling it the year of the magic dragon. And the reason I'm calling it that is because if you look at stories, any stories from around the globe where there are dragons involved, a dragon exists and its purpose is to guard and protect something so valuable, so precious, that it pulls in all challengers from all points of every level of skill and ability and rank and class because they all want access to these precious treasures that the dragon is guarding. But those are precious treasures and they are not meant for anyone or everyone. So, naturally, many people driven by their ambition, their optimism, their confidence in themselves, or their conceit come as challengers to the dragon to try and get past the dragon to access these things and fail in their mission because at the end of the day, there wasn't enough merit or integrity in them to give them or make them worthy of having access to these things. This is the year that we're looking at ahead. Jupiter and Neptune together are in Pisces. Jupiter is passing through Pisces fast, like quicksilver lightning fast, like a fish darting through the ocean. Jupiter is moving fast, so we've only got one opportunity and a quick one to catch this ride or get through that opening before it's gone. While this is happening, we are also starting a cycle of Taurus Scorpio eclipses all year long. And Taurus and Scorpio both are signs that represent values and resources. So the Taurus Scorpio eclipses all year long are going to put the fine point on the question that we must ask ourselves about whether we are worthy or not. What are my priorities? What's really important to me? Where do I put my absolute real efforts? What are my actual resources? When everything is stripped away from me and I have nothing left, what are the actual resources I have to work with? And did I know that before now? So the Taurus Scorpio eclipses challenge us in terms of our resources and our understanding of what our life priorities are, deeply, truly, genuine, spiritual life priorities. And it offers us the opportunity to be reborn, to transform ourselves, to become bigger, stronger, more resilient, more wise versions of ourselves. But it doesn't come easily. This is not going to be a year of lollipops and rainbows. I'm sorry. Actually, 2021 was a relatively calm, controlled year compared to the roller coaster ups and downs we might experience this year. And this year it won't be as much roller coaster ups and downs as much as a year that is populated with specific junctures or points in our lives where things are really dramatically pivotal, where we hit turning points, major turning points. And in those turning points, we will have the opportunity to discover ourselves and to know who we are and to know what we're capable of in the best sense possible. Or we'll simply perish in the process. So let's get on and take a look at the year of 2022 with this Jupiter-Neptune passage and this Taurus-Scorpio eclipse cycle all joining together because it promises to be a powerful, amazing year that will give you gifts and rewards and treasures and fortunes that you did not think were possible. You couldn't have even imagined the bounty that is hidden away from the general view because it's not meant for everyone or anyone. But first we have to get past the dragons. And there will be dragons. Because, my friends, remember, while Jupiter and Neptune rule miracles, miracles only show up in hours or times of dire need. And a miracle is based on your faith. So before you are worthy or meritorious of this miracle, or you can even pull it to yourself, your faith is going to be tested. Your faith is going to be tested. What do you actually believe instead of what you tell yourself or what you tell other people? This will be a year of magnificent faith testing, crisis moments that reveal the genuine nature of who you are and what matters to you in your life. And the most important thing, an opportunity for us in these moments to discover our real selves, our genuine selves, our better selves, and walk through fire to get past the dragon and to get access to treasures and fortunes that were hidden from you, from us for so very long. Because before now, we weren't ready for it. This is the year we do the work, and this is the year, if you are prepared and you move fast and you ride the wave, because it's a very fast transit, it'll be there for you. Anything is possible this year in the best senses of the word. Hey, so clearly I have mastered some technology here, which is a relief, right? So a couple of things I wanted to give you guys before we start the video. One, you're going to be seeing images of shamans through the different slides, because shamans, like dragons, are guardians or guards between worlds, right? The entry and exit points. Typically with a shaman, their task is to make the transition to the other side that is guarded by dragons, to reclaim or to get whatever is needed from there and bring it back. And this is specifically the job of the shaman, not you, because it's too dangerous for you to go, because you are not ready for that yet. And this year is very much a shamanistic kind of year, because it's also very much about healing and reclaiming the broken or lost parts of ourselves. Okay, so as we go through the year, understand that, yes, this is a time of miracles and magic and supernatural paranormal phenomenon and all sorts of amazing things. But it is not a year of lollipops and rainbows. Your faith will be tested, because miracles only appear in times of dire need. So if you're needing a miracle and it shows up, you're definitely in a situation of crisis. And again, miracles driven by faith. So this year, because of the Taurus Scorpio eclipses passing through with that Jupiter-Neptune in Pisces, we are absolutely going to be in a time of great faith testing. So get your mind right. Get your mind right. Also with that, I just wanted to add a couple of things that I thought were interesting about this year in terms of healing and mental health. So people who have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and or another condition, a sister condition called CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, may find themselves being more easily triggered or more intensely triggered at different points during this year. Forewarned is forearmed. So the first thing is, if you have PTSD or you think you have CPTSD, this is a great, fantastic year to work through those things. The healing is available and it will happen. Many of us are going to be having our own healing crisis, which is going to allow us to finally be free of the shackles to these things that cause us suffering and misery. But you have to want that for yourself, and you have to do the work. But it's there. More than ever before, this year is the year you can make great leaps and bounds to free yourself from that and to heal. For those of you who know people who have PTSD or CPTSD, forewarned is forearmed. Everything about being prepared is about planning ahead for something that might happen. So make sure you're doing your planning now for what to do in case the person that you care about is in crisis or begins acting out because they're in crisis. They will be okay. There's some powerful healing stuff that's going to happen this year, but you still got to get through the messy parts, right? And for those of you who don't know what CPTSD is a sister condition to PTSD. It's called complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's typically seen in people who have had histories of child abuse or early environment trauma. It doesn't have to be absolute horrific abuse that's obvious, right? Even people who have been I'll give you an example, and it should probably come up this year as well. Even people who have been socially terrorized as young people, they used to call it bullying, but it's actually social terrorism. And it is more pronounced when you're the only one in a large group of people and there's no escaping them. So that weird kid that everybody bullied because they were the only one, right, like them, that was getting terrorized by everyone around them because they were the only one. And nobody thought bullying was a bad thing. They more than likely, as adults, have CPTSD and all of the debilities that come with it. So, for those of you who think you might have CPTSD or you know you have CPTSD, this is a phenomenal year to get some really good healing done. So absolutely get on it. You'll be amazed at what can be accomplished. Miracles, miracles. And also, just wanted to add, because of the Jupiter-Neptune thing in Pisces, one of the things that I actually look for that I think is kind of interesting is a greater push and movement towards natural medicine, which I'm sure many of you are going to be happy to hear about, but also, and specifically when it comes to mental health, less invasive, less chemically or synthetic chemical dependent treatment for mental health issues. So one of the things that we know with depression, they're doing with, they're using magnets and magnetic frequencies to alter the neural pathways in the brain to treat depression that is otherwise not responsive to anything else. And it's working. Unfortunately, it's only available in a couple of places around the country, but it's an actual hospital, so it's a legitimate therapy now, just hard to get. And I think a lot of insurances aren't covering it as well, but has been shown to be effective in people who've had treatment-resistant depression to just about everything. The other thing is that I expect to see a lot of is an increased awareness of the value or benefits of microdosing hallucinogenics. Now, before you lose your mind, there has been some anecdotal indication or evidence that there's benefit to anxiety and depression that is difficult to treat otherwise using MDMA or ecstasy, which I don't recommend, LSD, which also I don't recommend, and psilocybin, magic mushrooms, which I'm actually a little more in favor of compared to the other three. Microdosing involves using very, very small doses, micrograms of these substances in amounts that do not give you any of the fun ride with the thing, but instead give you apparently some type of therapeutic benefit from it, which they're researching. Nobody really understands what's happening right now. The reason I do not recommend LSD is because it's already such a small amount. It's very hard to control the dose. You cannot microdose LSD. Like, it's very difficult to control that, and I wouldn't recommend it. And also, it's synthetic. You don't know what you're getting. With MDMA or ecstasy, because I know many of you have access to this, I also do not recommend it because, again, it's very hard to control the dosing, to do microdosing with it. But more importantly, MDMA or ecstasy has very severe side effects for people with specific types of physical conditions that can be life-threatening. All right, so I do not recommend MDMA or ecstasy either recreationally or for microdosing. With psilocybin, magic mushrooms. These are used and sold publicly in other countries, but here in the United States, you know how we are. Good Lord, they think cannabis is, oh my God, reefer madness. Jeez Louise, what a bunch of Puritans. Nobody ever got high on pot and started a bar fight. I'm just saying, right? But we legalize alcohol, we won't legalize marijuana. Okay, so so it's sold freely in other countries, but here, of course, you know how we are. So they're really slow on the uptake to do that. They only finally just got around to legalizing marijuana for medical purposes if you're on your deathbed, in some of the states, not even all of them. And of course, just as a sidebar, this is separate from all of that. If you have heart conditions, by the way, cannabis is not recommended neither by inhaling or orally in the tinctures, right? Or it's certainly not vaping oils. And the reason is they just recently did an article by a medical researcher talking about what they learned about cannabis and its effect on a compromised heart. So if you have cardiac conditions, cannabis is not recommended because it will make things worse. But as always, do your own research, look for the article. If I can find it, I'll link it below. But that's something to think about as well. So there you go. Okay. And with this year, I just wanted to point out that this is going to be an amazing, wonderful, life-changing year for many of us, and life-changing in the best ways. But we have to be ready for it because Jupiter's moving fast and we're only going to get one chance at this. So here's to 2022. January through March 2022, or the first quarter. During this quarter, the major players that we are looking at are Pluto is in the final degrees of Capricorn. Jupiter has now entered the first or beginning degrees of Pisces. Venus and Mars are now coming close together and dancing their tango. Mercury will station retrograde in Aquarius. And this by itself promises a very, very active quarter. So, and January in particular. So your fasten your seatbelt months during this quarter are January and March. We'll get into them a little more specifically in a moment. And the intimate relationship spotlight is on the month of February and not because of Valentine's Day. So let's take a look at what's going on. Oh, January. Well, my friends, we're starting the year off on quite the month. So January starts us off this year with a feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. So there may be a lot more free-floating anxiety that people can't quite put their finger on floating around than we realize. And all you have to do is look to the more easily flustered or unstable people around us to see just how much free-floating anxiety that nobody can put their finger on is floating around. Now, the significant or high point theme for this month is very much Capricorn, Capricorn, Capricorn. So Venus will be in Capricorn all month long. Venus will station direct, but not until the end of the month. Which means that as Venus slows down and creeps to a stop at the end of the month, people are going to be a lot more thin-skinned than usual. With that said, Mercury is getting ready to station retrograde. And when it does, it's going to retrograde right on top of electrifying, alarming, unstable, unpredictable, and explosive Uranus. So the two together are going to create very tense situations and lots of hair trigger type of events, right? So spring traps and hair trigger reaction time. So be gentle with the people around you and certainly with yourself, and definitely check in with yourself to make sure that you are not also suffering from some of this. If you meditate, this is a great time to do more of it. If you don't meditate, this is a great time to start. So waiting for the other shoe to drop, feeling like the other shoe is going to drop at any second, even though we don't really know what the other shoe is definitely the mood for January. So we might see some pretty huge events happening or some alarming things coming up, bubbling up to the surface of consciousness this month. We can get through this, but calm heads must prevail. Calm heads must prevail. So if you have any experience in, I don't know, hostage negotiation or talking people off of ledges, you know, the whole suicide prevention team that talks people off of the ledge on top of buildings, or crisis intervention and crisis management interpersonal skills, this is a great month to use them actively, often, and as preemptive work before the crisis actually happens. I know, so ominous, right? But forewarned is forearmed. Okay, now February, when we get into February, we're going to get a little bit of a break, sort of, right? In February, Venus and Mars will move together into Capricorn. Now, the thing about it is, as it moves into Capricorn, it's going to make aspects, you know, bing, 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 like a pinball machine in order. It will aspect Jupiter first, then Uranus, and then Neptune, and then Pluto. So here's what this means in terms of our relationships, because relationships are going to be spotlighted all month long. And with Venus and Mars in Capricorn, it's not, if you know Capricorns, man, they are no joke. So they're not trying to hear about romantic promises and all sort of stuff. Like there are ways that we do things, and there are rules about how this is going to happen. And these are the expectations that must be met before I can take you seriously. Yeah, Capricorn energy is just like they've got a specific protocol that must be followed, you know, along with the business negotiation before you get to the finish line. So with Venus and Mars together in Capricorn all month long, that's kind of what it's going to feel like for a lot of us. So being forced into a box or being required to step up to bat and do things the right way or a specific way may be the only way we can get through this. Now, in relationships, what this means is in the beginning of the month, in the beginning of February, there may be a lot of romantic optimism and certainly lots of excitement for some people as Venus and Mars get down closer to Uranus, right about the middle of the month. As this happens, we can expect relationships to expand if you're in a poly relationship, or get stress tested if you're in too tightly contained a relationship, or if you are single. What is it? Singling and mingling, I guess is the way to put it, right? If you're out there single and looking, lots of exciting prospects on the horizon. Now, here's the thing though. There is a way that these things have to be done, and there are protocols that need to be followed, and there are discussions that need to be had, and expectations that need to be met before I will take you seriously. So understand that whatever you get into, it's not, this month is not a fly-by-night, free-for-all, ships passing in the night, ships passing in the night. It's not like that. Not at all. It is not that kind of fun-loving whatever. This is get down to business, right? And the important thing to understand about this is that it will have this thing, this ineffable thing. Typically, we associate this with Virgos and Scorpios, but we're definitely feeling it now with Capricorn. And that is, there is this sense that everything was going fine, and the next thing you know, like things just fell apart. Like, I don't understand what happened. Well, what happened is they've made the decision that you're not worthy, or this relationship is not meritorious enough, or pick 1,000 reasons. Like like a cat, they're very finicky and they've turned off and they're done with you. But Capricorn is very, very socially savvy. So they won't create a situation that's awkward or clearly hostile. So they'll be pleasant, but you'll know that frosty feeling, it's not going anywhere. And as we get closer to the end of the month, Venus and Mars will move closer to Pluto in the final degrees of Capricorn, which means that by the time we get to the end of the month, the truth will be revealed. Like anything you need to know about where you are and aren't going with a relationship or a person, like it's all coming to an absolute head and a decision by the end of the month. So for those of you who are in relationships, this may be a very stressful month. Because temptation will abound, as will boredom, and confident optimism, which may or may not be good, depending on what you're being confidently optimistic about. And the end of the month is definitely going to push a lot of people into a crisis point. So there's that. Now, for individuals, also too, I will point out that with Venus and Mars coming together with Pluto in those last degrees of Capricorn, towards the end of the month, is also there's going to be a mounting pressure in some individuals that's not healthy. This can exacerbate or fan the flames of toxic behavior and or extremely domineering, controlling and or abusive behavior. So for those of you who are in challenging relationships, or people who are in not the healthiest relationships, so make sure you have the phone numbers for shelters and domestic abuse hotlines handy, so that you can direct them to it before things reach critical mass at the end of the month. Because again, this whole quarter, some people are going to be more easily triggered than others, and more triggered more intensely than usual. February, when it comes to relationships, as we get mid to late month, it's really, it is on, honey, it is on. So the best thing we can do is to try and be prepared for that and put in some safety valves for ourselves or the people we love. And now this brings us to March. And I'm going to start this with, for those of you who are born in March, this is going to be a year to remember. Oh my God, this is going to be a year to remember. So March, for the most part, seems kind of benign. Venus and Mars will have moved into Aquarius, which is kind of a fun, friendly sign. We're okay with that. Lots of eccentricity, lots of weirdness, lots of, group activity. It's friendly. Venus and Mars in Aquarius is friendly, and it's the sign of the mind. So people who will be coming together with people who are mentally sympathetic or simpatico with them, which is good, because if you're going to have a relationship with somebody, it should definitely be a meeting of the minds before the meeting of the hips. That's how you get relationships to stick and last and be good for you. I'm just saying. However, Pluto will officially hit the 28th degree, which is the last 2 degrees of the sign, which really brings this to a crisis point kind of urgency or energy. We're feeling those gates coming down. We're feeling them come down. And also we've got a lot of other high intensity, high energy activation occurring this month involving some hard planets, including Uranus and Saturn. So March has got a lot going on. Too much to get into here, but I will say for those of you who are born in March, this is going to be a game changer. Oh my God, this is going to be a game changer. Fasten your seatbelts, kids. And also those of you who are Virgos that are born in the opposite degrees, which would be September. September-born Virgos will also be feeling this as well in the month of March. So the month of March will be active, dynamic. I'm not even going to pretend I'm going to predict this, but I will say is there's a lot of fated events happening in March. So be on the lookout. Bolo, be on the lookout and be aware, and fasten your seatbelts. And if March wasn't enough for you, now we come to the second quarter of the year, April to June. This quarter, we're having an eclipse in Taurus. We're having an eclipse in Scorpio. We've got a planetary shift with an Aries emphasis. And Mercury will retrograde at the 29th degree of Taurus, the degree of weeping sisters. Because, if you didn't have something to cry about before, you'll get one now. The month of smoke signals and warnings of what to come will be April, so pay attention to events in April. It is important. And our very, very tense months will be May and June. This particular quarter will be a challenge to get through, but it's very important that we do. And remember, more than anything else all year long, and especially right now, your thoughts create reality. So pay attention to what you're feeding with your thoughts. You can change the future by changing your thinking in the present right now. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not loving this month or this quarter. The second quarter, I'm not loving it. I would like a break. We've had a long pandemic and an even longer bad administration. Anyway, here's what we have on tap. So starting with April, thank God. The saving grace here is that Venus will be in Pisces all month long. And Venus in Pisces is a gentling influence. It is a very magical, wonderful influence. So Venus in Pisces all month long is welcome, considering what we have coming up to bat for the next couple of months. This month in particular, interestingly, we have planets all in fixed and mutable signs, except the Sun and Pluto. Sun and Pluto will go into square with each other about mid-month, which will force decisions. Now, they're in cardinal signs. So the Sun and Pluto in cardinal signs with an emphasis on fixed mutable planets or mutable signs everywhere else this month indicates that there's a lot of flexibility and fluidity in thoughts and priorities and ideas, but the hammer's going to come down and a decision has to be made, and everybody's got to get into line with it around the 18th or 19th of April, because the Sun and Pluto setting up that square is going to force a decision. So for those of you who are looking for clarity and direction and some confident, committed assurity, you're not getting it this month until after that Sun-Pluto makes it clear what we're actually doing as opposed to what we're saying we're doing. Now, also this month, Pluto will station direct at the end of the month. Remember, with outer planets, we feel them well ahead of time. So we're feeling that Pluto station from March all the way through April. And it's in the last degrees of Capricorn. Boy, are we feeling it. Good Lord, we're feeling it. So with Pluto making that station direct and that Sun squaring it about mid-month, we know that whatever these decisions or calls to action are that we get around the middle of April, they're huge. So keep an eye on that. Also at the same time, while Pluto stations direct, the eclipse is happening. We have a 10-degree Taurus eclipse happening as Pluto stations direct. So again, big fated events. both in your personal life and also out in the world. Now, when we get down into May, and this is the month I'm not loving. I am not loving this month. As we get into May, what will happen is most of these planets will start to shift into Aries, which includes Jupiter, which will enter Aries on May 11th. Now, because of what we're dealing with, so we have a Sun-Pluto square that just happened. Pluto is just stationed direct at the same time. Now we've got Jupiter moving to Aries, a whole bunch of other stuff shifting into Aries. We also have an eclipse at 25 Scorpio this month, right? So Aries, Scorpio, Pluto. We're going to have a lot of saber rattling this month. And saber is like, threatening war. So a lot of the drums of war will be beaten this month. This does not mean we're going to war. However, it is always a possibility because thoughts create reality. So we have to plan ahead of time to avoid this or avoid the worst of it. But don't you kid yourself. There will be a lot of threats, real, credible threats to start a war or a battle. But this will not erupt out of nowhere. We will have seen the grumblings of it long before now. It's up to us to stave this off. We have the power to detour this or to minimize the impact or to do many, many things to lessen or nullify this from actually happening and turning this into just a lot of noise, right? Or like a bomb that gets detonated but never actually goes off because it's a dud. We can do this. But you've got to get your mind right, and you've got to decide which wolf you're feeling, and you have to do something about it. Okay? So you have to stop buying into this. You have to stop supporting this with your thoughts and your talk. Like this is an academic question. This is real. This is some serious stuff, right? And if it's not war between nations, it may be war between us and nature. But either way, May is not the month to play around because everything is being set up to create a situation where this is it. Oh, you want to play games, buddy? It's on. It's on. The old saying, around and find out. Well, yeah, this is the month that you're going to find out. So prior to now, make sure you're doing everything you can here to shift us away from this as a possibility. Listen, I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of war. Don't like to see other people's children getting killed. Don't want to see my own get killed. These people want to have war. You go. You take yourself. You and these nasty old men who are so quick to send our children off to get killed. You go. You go and you take your children. You leave mine here. I'm just saying. Golly day, I'm just saying. Oof. All right. Also this month, and remember, Mercury is going retrograde at 29 Taurus, and that will happen just a couple of days after the eclipse and Jupiter going to Aries. It's just the middle to last couple of weeks of this month in May are just, get your Xanax, honey. Get your Xanax. Okay. Now, the positive side, there is a positive side here. The positive side here is that this is a very energetic, focused month. So there is the possibility that if we can avoid the worst, we can certainly move towards the best and get a whole lot done. This can be a wildly productive month in terms of breaking new ground and actually pushing past obstacles, right? And really starting to break ground to build big, powerful things, right? They don't always have to be awful things, but we got to do the work beforehand and be prepared for that and set that situation up. All right. Now, and this takes us now to June. So when we get down to June, Mars, lovely, lovely Mars, will be in Aries all month long, which is exactly where I don't want to see this planet. But, it's going to do it eventually every year. So I guess we have to live with it, right? So Mars in Aries is the sign and placement of the warrior. Mars in Aries loves competition, conflict, challenge, conquest. Mars loves the battle. So whether it's a battle of wits or it's a battle of arms, Mars is all there for it. Now, with Mars in Aries all month long, after the May we just had, this means one of two things. Either we will go into globally, we will start going into a full-blown conflict because Mars and Aries will continue what was started in May. Or we're going to have just an incredibly energetic month where we can get a whole lot done. Now, in the month of June, Mercury will go into Gemini, which is good because it gives us a lot more flexibility in our thinking. and the ability to see multiple viewpoints, not just our own, which you desperately need whenever anything is emphasized in Aries, because they're really good about putting their own stuff forward, not really good about listening to other people's viewpoints, although they would tell you otherwise. And Venus goes into Taurus at the end of the month, which means that Venus will be in Aries all month long too. So June is going to be great for love, romance, sex, not so good for other stuff. So whatever we get in June is going to be a continuation of May. So pay attention and let's prepare and plan and direct that energy now. On a personal note, it will be a fantastic month for romantic fun and games. So as always, I would say, folks, be careful, be smart, use protection, wear a mask and the condom. Do not make yourself a human disaster movie. And if you're in a committed relationship, obviously, talk to your partner first. Get permission. I'm just saying. Jeez. For those of you who are single and looking for relationships, or in poly relationships looking for additional poly partners, this will be a very sexy month. But I don't know that anything born of this month or that comes through this month is going to have the stamina necessary to last. But boy, will it be amazing and exciting while it lasts. So don't let that throw you. And if you're one of those people that really likes excitement and fire and drama in your relationships, things started this month will definitely have all the interest peaking that you enjoy that will keep your attention long past the time other people would have been exhausted. So there's that. All right, and now we're down to the third quarter. This is July through September of 2022. In this quarter, we will have Jupiter stationing retrograde in Aries. Mars will also cool off in the signs of Taurus and then Gemini. Mercury will station retrograde in Libra. And the big months during this quarter will be July and August. And here's a surprise for you. The scavenger hunt secrets and solutions that are hidden everywhere are the months of September. Okay, so if we've gotten to July, we're still alive. That's a good thing. All right, so Mercury is in Cancer this month, in the month of July, and it's moving fast, or at least it feels like it's moving fast, which is unusual for Cancer, because typically we think of Cancer as moving a little bit slow and sideways. Now, there's a bit of, still a little bit of tension in the air, because Uranus and Saturn are approaching a tight square. They're not exact yet, but we're still feeling it. So there's a lot of irritability and tension, possibly left over from the last couple of months, because boy, oh boy, oh boy, were we really like amped up and wired for the last 2 months. Mars will move into, just so you guys know, Mars will move into a conjunction with Uranus and a wide square with that Saturn at the end of the month, at the end of July. And at the same time, Jupiter will be stationing retrograde in Aries. So we can expect a lot of high voltage frustration and obstruction and like, what is it, shaking your fist at the sky kind of damnation and tarnation happening around the end of July. Don't know what that's about, but there it is. So be prepared. And if you've got major important things planned that are pleasurable, this might not be the time to go. So if you can change your schedule a little bit to have your happy times, vacations and stuff like that, at another time other than the last week of July, you'll probably get a lot more out of your vacation and your pleasure time. I'm just saying. I mean, unless you really like challenges, like maybe one of those people that, climbs Mount Kilimanjaro because it's there. At which point, this will be a great week for you because, boy, you're going to challenges aplenty. But for those of us who think of downtime and relaxation and vacation as pleasant, pleasurable, and no challenge at all, this is not the week. Okay, and this brings us to August, which is going to be quite the month. Okay, so here's the good things. Mercury will go into Virgo at the beginning of the month. This is a good thing because Mercury loves being in Virgo, and Mercury in Virgo is practical, pragmatic, and problem solving, and humble, and aside from the fact that they're a bit of a know-it-all and they're a little too generous with their criticism because they're trying to help or improve, sometimes we don't want to be fixed. Leave us alone. Don't need to know about that. Other than that, it's actually very useful, right? Now, Uranus is making its station retrograde this month as well. And again, we're feeling it all month long, probably back as far as July, which makes that last week of July even more emphasized in terms of frustration. Oh my God. Oh. I'm staying in bed all week. I don't know about you. Okay. So with Uranus stationing retrograde in Taurus this month and Mercury going into Virgo, there's a couple of actually good things that come with this. One, that particular combination means we're going to have the opportunity to fix some issues that have been sitting there like a Rubik's Cube you couldn't figure it out, right? Like we've gone over and over again, but now finally we'll be able to figure out a solution to this damn thing. So we've got a really good opportunity this month to go back over some long-standing problems that were just like the riddle of the Sphinx and just would not be solved and actually come to a solution. We're okay with that. The big thing this month is around August 10th through 16th, so the middle week of the month, 10th through 16th, we've got a huge honkin' T-square with Sun, Saturn, and Uranus. Uranus is at the leg of this T-square. We're feeling most of the month, but this particular week, we're really feeling it because Mars will be joining Uranus and really like igniting this T-square around the middle of the month. So look for August to be fraught with conflict and power plays. I know, right? And a whole lot of just stubborn, bullheaded resistance for no other reason than they just don't want to concede. Like you want to hear that. So just bear with it, get through it, and understand that it's only about a week or so. People are going to be really obstinate and really refusing to give up any ground in the name of compromise or anything else. By the time we get to the 21st, Mars will have slipped into Gemini and will take some of the pressure off, and people will be ready to come back to the negotiating table. So if you've got major stuff that needs to be discussed or negotiated, you're not going to get anything done between the 10th and 16th. We'll wait until after the 21st when Mars is in a more reasonable, talkative sign and negotiations are actually able to get underway productively. And then to complete the quarter, because this is the third quarter of the year, is September. Now, September, I'm kind of digging. September's kind of how to explain this. So September is going to feel like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's like the Keystone Cops kind of took over the daycare. Like, oh my God, right? Can you imagine? Or the Three Stooges. Imagine the Three Stooges in charge of a daycare. That's kind of what September feels like. The good news is that Mercury and Venus are in mutual receptions. There will be comedy aplenty all month long if you can keep your sense of humor. And also there will be some benefit to even the biggest of blunders this month if you're willing to look for it. However, make no mistake, it will be that kind of a month where you're just like, who put the Three Stooges in charge of the daycare? Mercury will station retrograde this month in Libra. Now, Mercury stationing retrograde this month in Libra will make a square aspect to Jupiter, which is also retrograde in Aries. This is not necessarily a bad thing because this will absolutely slow down that impulsive nature. So people and their impulses will come to a grinding halt or a slowdown, and if they don't, they're going to find themselves walking right smack into a wall. So they're going to slow down and stop whether they want to or not. So that's a good thing, right? That's a very good thing. As we go through the month, towards the later part of the month, it will get a little weird because that Mercury retrograde will now square Neptune retrograde. So here you may find that at the end of September, because of all the bumbling and fumbling and just retarded behavior that we've been watching all month long, like literally who put the Three Stooges comedy team in charge of the daycare kind of performance all month long. By the time we get to the end of the month, we may find that there's a mad scramble to cover their butts and make excuses and to make it look like somebody else's problem. So you may find that there's a whole lot of deliberate deception, misinformation, misdirection, like a magic trick, to try and get people to look the other way while they're trying to clean up their mess and extricate themselves from responsibility for the mess that they have created all month long. So I'm just saying, be aware and keep your sense of humor. And now this brings us to the last quarter of the month, October through December 2022. And this quarter we will have an eclipse again in Scorpio and again in Taurus. Jupiter will return to its last degree of Pisces. Yay, team. Jupiter will also station direct in Pisces while there. At the same time, Neptune will be stationing direct in Pisces this quarter, and Mars will be retrograde. All of this together actually paints a really good picture that's manageable, and we're okay with that. Now, your final countdown months in terms of this is your last chance to get it right because the train is leaving the station is November. Your fresh start month, when we literally are starting over, clean slate, this is it, like anything left behind is left behind, there's no going back for it, and what you got is what you got, is going to be December. So let's take a look. Hey now, so listen, I'm going to say in terms of months this year outside of March, October is probably one of the more spectacular, promising months, in my opinion. Your experience and mileage may vary. This month, we've got some amazing things happening. So the first thing is Pluto will station direct on October 8th. Obviously, we were feeling it the month before, but it is official this month. Mercury will be stationing direct this month at 24 Virgo in the sign of its rulership, a very powerful position. Jupiter will retrograde back into the sign of Pisces, which we're good with. We are so good with that because not only does Jupiter like being in Pisces, and it's going to give us one last chance to do any last minute cleanup before we go. It's also going to be sextiling Pluto in those last degrees of Capricorn. So there's a lot of extra oomph and juice added to this particular return to Pisces, return to paradise. So that's a good thing. And Saturn will also be stationing direct in Aquarius this month as well. So we've got a whole lot of stuff happening that's good this month in terms of easier aspects and planetary movement that's going to assist in our efforts in a smoother way. I'm good with it. This month also, we've got an eclipse in Scorpio. And the eclipse in Scorpio will occur at the same time that Saturn is going direct and Jupiter has returned to Pisces. So we've got a really, that eclipse is going to be very magical in its own way. And certainly in terms of really giving you what you've brought on for yourself in terms of your faith and your belief. So should be interesting. Now with this, with this particular eclipse in this whole month of October, I would look for like forward motion, lots of forward. And listen, after the last month, we'll take all the forward motion we can get. So not only do we have lots of forward motion this month, but also Venus will be activating this eclipse along with all its other planetary influence. So relationships will take a very, very deep dive into deep feelings. So getting real, authentic, and genuine about our feelings is definitely on the plate this month. And we're good with that too. Now, this takes us down to, November. In November, Jupiter will station direct. Yes! Yay, team. Jupiter will station direct. Mars, thank God, will retrograde and be retrograde all month long. Mars is retrograde prior to that, but it will remain retrograde all month long. Mars goes retrograde on the 30th of October. So technically it turned retrograde in October, but we're feeling it in November. And the reason this is good is because Mars in Gemini can be a little impulsive. I mean, Gemini is not known for having a really long focus. That's not a long range rifle there, honey. So when Mars is retrograde in Jupiter or in Gemini, it slows down the impulsive qualities of Mars and Gemini, which we're good with. And also it slows down the speech. So people will, they may not necessarily be less dishonest or more honest when Mars is retrograde in Gemini, but they're certainly less prone to filling the room with a lot of pointless hot air and unnecessary talk about nothing. So that will be interesting. Now, November also has an eclipse. And again, we have a Taurus eclipse in November. This particular, and it will be at the beginning of the month. So these bridge weeks, the last week of October, first 2 weeks of November, this window between the 2 months is going to be very exciting because this particular eclipse that occurs at the beginning of November will be conjuncting Uranus. And While it does that, it will be setting up a T-square. So my friends, November, we've got a big old red hot button happening around the beginning of the month, around the 8th, with a T-square, which will involve Mercury, Venus, Uranus, and Saturn. So there will be a lot of things that will finally be forced onto the table for discussion that people have been avoiding for a long time. And hopefully some really good, strong, clear decisions will come from this. But a plan, decisions, commitment, and being forced to face things is absolutely on the table in November. We're good with that. And, you know, it's not like we've been avoiding looking at stuff prior to this. It's just that whatever this is that comes up in November is stuff that we've been dancing around and avoiding for too long, obviously, because it is reaching officially critical mass in November. So, yay team. Now, I'm all kinds of smiles about this because remember, folks, Jupiter will be in Pisces at this time, and Jupiter is the planet and the sign together that rules miracles, and it will be near Neptune. So we've got a chance of literally pulling a rabbit out of our hat in the 11th hour this month with whatever this is that comes up under the T-square. So let's watch for that, and let's prepare and plan and get our mind right well before then so that when it comes, it'll happen. Okay? And my friends, because the fun just never stops around here, this brings us to the last month of the last quarter of 2022. Neptune will station direct at the beginning of the month, and it will be joining Jupiter, which is still right there. Well, it's in the last degree of Pisces. It will move into Aries by the end of the month, but for now, we've got a little sliver of a window working here. Jupiter will re-enter Aries on the 22nd, just before Christmas Eve, and Mercury will station retrograde at the end of the month, conjuncting Pluto. So in December, that first beginning of the week, we've got a chance to really get our visualization and manifestation, the final legs of it, anything that we haven't seen or pulled in, we've got a chance to really put it in there, like get it in there, make magic happen. Okay. Because when Jupiter moves forward again into Aries, it will not return to Pisces, and those seeds will have been planted. So things that we have planted during this Jupiter and Pisces time this year will now start to grow. They will germinate and grow now that Jupiter is in Aries and moving forward without return. Mercury will station retrograde at the end of the month. Now, when Mercury stations retrograde, it will be conjuncting Pluto. It's a wide conjunction, but it's there. And what this means is that as we get to the end of December and the end of 2022, we will have the opportunity to revisit our thoughts and priorities about things and reevaluate what it is that we're committed to and how we're going about things. So anything that was left behind, ignored, swept under the rug, or otherwise pretended that it didn't exist, we will have the opportunity to pull out of the closet, dust it off, take a good, honest look at it, and figure out what to do with it. So we will end this year on a very, believe it or not, positive, proactive, and reflective, very self-examination kind of reflective note, which will be good because we are clearing the decks for a whole new epoch starting 2023. And this video's goddess story is for the goddess Sedna. She is the Inuit goddess of the sea and all living things inside the sea. For those of you who don't know what Inuit is, she would be the native people of the Antarctic, or what we used to call Eskimos. And the reason we are spotlighting Sedna in this particular segment or this video is because of the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces. So we know that with Jupiter and Neptune together in Pisces, there's a heavy, dramatic emphasis on water quality, ocean life, water levels that will be occurring all through the year. These are things we're going to have to address. And they're just, as of the other day, they're talking about how there's an ice plate or something cracking, and this is catastrophic in warning, because if it breaks loose, there is the possibility that most of the coastlines, especially around the US, are going to disappear and go underwater because the sea level have risen so much. So Sedna is a very good goddess to discuss right now for the year ahead. All right. And also too, so you know, the the information, the story, there are many variations of the story, but this one comes from TirzahSchaefer.com, and I really like her version and take on it, so I'm going to post a link below so you can read it as well. The goddess Sedna, realm of the deep waters. The goddess Sedna's home is in the cold waters of the icy sea of the Arctic region, where the Inuit people live. In Inuit mythology, Sedna is the goddess of the sea and marine animals. Some of her other names are Arnakusak, Sasuma Arna, Nerevik, Nulyajuk, Arnapkafaluk, Takanapsaluk, or Takanaluk. I'm trying desperately to pronounce these names correctly. The story of Sedna is a creation myth and tells the story of how Sedna came to rule over Adivun, the Inuit underworld. There are many different versions of the myth. In one, she marries a dog, in another, a bird spirit, in yet another, she is a mistreated orphan and the tribe is trying to get rid of her. Whichever version you read, the one common thread is that her father takes her out into his kayak and throws her overboard into the stormy sea. Sedna tries to cling to the boat, but either her fingers freeze off or her father chops them off in order to appease the spirits. Her fingers become sea creatures, and Sedna sinks to the bottom of the sea, where she rules over the monsters and creatures of the deep, as well as the sea animals. She is also said to have grown a fishtail, hence my choice of a mermaid picture. One of these creation tales mentioned is that Sedna lived with her parents, whom she loved very much. Her father was a very good hunter, and thus Sedna lived a very comfortable life. Because of that, she was unwilling to marry and leave her parents' household. This video's goddess is Sedna. She is the goddess of the sea. She is an Inuit goddess, and for those of you who are unfamiliar, Inuit is what we used to call Eskimo. Okay, so forgive me if I mispronounce some of these names. Sedna is the goddess of the sea and marine animals in Inuit mythology, also known as the mother of the sea or mistress of the sea. The story of Sedna, which is a creation myth, describes how she came to rule over Adivun, the Inuit underworld. I'm not sure if that's Inuit or Inuit. More than one version of the Sedna legend exists. Some legends have her as the daughter of a goddess named Esaratitsok, while others only mention her father. In one legend, Sedna is a giant, the daughter of the creator god Anguta, with a great hunger that causes her to attack her parents. Angered, Anguta takes her out to sea and throws her over the side of his kayak. As she clings to the sides, he chops off her fingers, and she sinks to the underworld, becoming the ruler of the monsters of the deep. Her huge fingers become the seals, walruses, and whales hunted by the Inuit. In another version of the legend, she is dissatisfied with men found for her by her father, and so marries a dog. Her father is so angry at this that he throws her into the sea, and when she tries to climb back into the boat, he cuts off her fingers. Her fingers become the first seals, and she becomes a mighty sea goddess. When she is angered, the shaman travels to wash and comb her hair for her, after which she is placated and releases the animals to the hunters. In other versions, she's unable to comb her hair because she lacks fingers, so a shaman must brush it for her. In the Netsilik region, the story states that the Nulyak was a mistreated orphan. One day the people tried to get rid of her by attempting to drown her by chopping off her fingertips. But the fingertips would transform into seals and walruses. Eventually, Nulyak marries a sculpin and lives in the sea, controlling all sea mammals. Other versions of the legend depict Sedna as a beautiful maiden who rejects marriage proposals from the hunters of her village. When an unknown hunter appears, Sedna's father agrees to give her to him as a wife in return for fish. Sedna's father gives Sedna a sleeping potion and gives her to the hunter, who takes to a large nest on a cliff, revealing his true form, a great bird spirit, variously described as either a raven, a fulmar, or a koksaut, or a petrel spirit. She wakes surrounded by birds. Her father attempts to rescue her, but the bird spirit becomes angry, causing a great storm. In desperation, Sedna's father throws her into the raging sea. Attempting to cling to the kayak, her hands freeze and her fingers fall off, becoming the creatures of the sea. She falls to the bottom of the sea and grows a fishtail. Sedna is kidnapped or deceived by a different bird creature in yet another version. Her father then leaves in his kayak to rescue her from the floating ice island where she's imprisoned while the bird creature is away. The creature, enraged by her disappearance, calls to a spirit of the sea to help him. The sea spirit locates the kayak with 2 humans on board and creates huge waves to kill them. Her father throws Sedna overboard in the hope that this will appease the angry god. Sedna clings to the kayak, but her father grabs a little axe and chops 3 of her fingers off before striking her on the head. The 3 fingers each become a different species of seal. The stroke to her head sends Sedna to the ocean floor where she resides, commanding the animals of the sea. In one Baffin Island tradition, Sedna was in a kayak with her family when a storm started. Her parents thought she was to blame for the storm and threw her into the sea. She clung to the kayak, but her father cut her fingers off, first the tips, then the second knuckle, then the last knuckle. Her disembodied fingers turned into sea creatures. Sedna gained control over the animals. If humans angered her, she could stop the animals from coming to their hunting sites, thus causing famine. The varying legends each give different rationales for Sedna's death. Yet in each version, her father then takes her to the sea in his kayak, chopping off her fingers. In each version, she sinks to the bottom of the sea, worshipped by hunters who depend on her goodwill to supply food. She is considered a vengeful goddess, and hunters must placate and pray to her to release the sea animals from the ocean depths for their hunt. At Kilinik, people threw worn-out harpoon heads, broken knives, and morsels of meat and bone into the sea as offerings. So I realize this is a pretty dark story, right? But these are our stories. These are our mythological stories. These are our history, right? And one of the things, if you really think and listen to the story, one of the things that it's talking about is betrayal, right? And also specifically deception and betrayal and the price of these things. So here is the feminine energy being betrayed. She's being deceived and she's being betrayed. And she, while victimized by that, she does not remain a victim. She survives these things and transforms into something far greater than she was before this. Also, it's about the capacity to forgive. So she is able to move beyond the betrayal and offer enough forgiveness to sustain life for all of the people rather than withholding everything from everyone to punish one person. So the ability to forgive and see the bigger picture is huge in this story. It's about betrayal and forgiveness. Finally, one of the interesting things, they talk all about her hair and her not being able to comb her hair. So with women and through the ages, women's hair, has been a source of mythological importance, in myths and stories. In the Bible, everywhere we talk about hair and women's hair. And even in some religious practices, they require that women shorn their head and literally remove all their hair as a sign of humility or to maintain humility. So for a woman and her hair, it's not about pride as much as it is about self-image, right? How do we identify and feel about ourselves as feminine? Who are we? And also to remember, your hair keeps your history. You didn't know that, did you? So with hair strand testing, they can take a strand of hair and they can, because of the length of the hair, it traps all the chemicals and minerals and things that have happened in the hair strand. The hair strand itself becomes a recording of your history biologically. So the hair also represents history, psychic history, especially for a woman, because all of our history is also recorded in our hair. So when a woman is unable to manage her hair, when a woman does not have hair, she no longer has access to her history. And without your history, you have no identity. You don't know if you don't know your history, you don't know who you are, because you have no idea where you've come from or how you got here. So, the act of being unable to comb her own hair is the uh, insult or injury to her, in that they have robbed her of her ability to own her identity and to know her history. And given the trauma that she experienced that transformed her into the goddess of the sea, there would be reasons why they would not want her to know her history. She's already a vengeful goddess because she can't access those memories or that history because she can't get to her hair. Imagine how frightened they would be of her vindictiveness if she actually knew how she ended up in this position. So this year in 2022, this is the year of Sedna and the ocean and the waters and the sea creatures, and also about womanhood and our identity and our history and knowing who we are, remembering who we are. So as you go through this year, understand, know, remember, be aware that the goddess has risen, and remember who you are. And that's it. That is our report for 2022. Down below, I will provide links for domestic abuse hotlines. I will provide links to sexual assault hotlines nationally, suicide prevention hotlines, and anything else I can find for PTSD hotlines, which I suppose will come under, any of the crisis hotlines. And also provide a link for information about CPST, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And again, this is a year of miracles, but miracles only appear when you're in a time of dire need, and they're faith-based. So in a time of dire need, it's not a time to figure out that you didn't actually believe as much as you thought you did. Prior to that is the time you should be putting in the time and the effort to really get your mind right. All right. Talk to you guys later.